Simon's Universe of Music. This is an absolutely incredible day for the channel. Here I am with Nick Brine, who is a producer, engineer that has worked with the best people in the universe. So, Nick, thank you very much for your time. I'm going to start with, how did you feel when Kingsley interviewed you?
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky to get the interview in the first place, which was through a friend who already had a job there at Rockfield. I went along. My dad took me because I was only 16, so I couldn't drive. And my dad knew them because my dad was had a taxi firm in Monmouth, so he used to drive like Robert Plant around and all the people at the studios all the time. So my dad said, "I'll take you over there." So he took me over, had the interview with Kingsley. I didn't know what to expect when I got there, and it didn't quite look as I thought it was going to look. I had no idea what to expect, really. And the interview was very odd. I didn't say a word. Kingsley just spoke, because everyone who's met Kingsley will tell you he's one for stories. So he kind of told me a load of stories, spoke about the music business, told me how rubbish it all was, told me to go to university and become an architect, don't get into the business, all those kind of things. And then after about 45 minutes, he said, but if you still want the job, give me a ring when you get home. And that was it. I didn't say a word. He didn't even ask my name, anything. He just said, I know your family and I know you're local. And Darren, who was there before me, said, has put a good word in for you. So yeah, if you want to do it, then give me a ring when you get home.
Isn't it amazing how in life you can meet people that give you opportunities?
Yeah, I didn't know where it was going to lead to. I knew I wanted to have a career in music. I was in bands, but I was always interested in how the records were made and put together. I was always reading the cover, the whole thing back to front, kind of find out where it was recorded, who recorded it. I was always interested in those kind of things, always recording my band's rehearsals. And just a great opportunity. And that was the day that I got my opportunity to kind of be somewhere like that, especially that period of time as well, going early 90s to a place like that where it was just about to take off again,
Nick, I think it's the most amazing time ever. That music just then.
Yeah.
Amazing. The best.
Yeah, just great time.
The best.
Yeah, because when you look back at like the 60s, brilliant periods, and they didn't really kind of have anything to compare it to of a like, and then 70s you had the 60s. Look back, by the time you get to the 90s, you got all that amazing music and all those bands that have been and then kind of wanting to create your own scene from it. And what happened was just amazing. They just came along just at the right time as that was starting out.
It did.
It means as much to like our generation, that kind of period of music means so much to people now. So, the period I get asked about the most is the bands I get asked about the most. People are just absolutely just into that period of music.
Yeah. Isn't it just amazing how it can just have such an impact on people's lives? The songs, the people, the characters, just all made it so special.
Yeah. The musicians were great, the bands were great. There was always characters, even in the kind of smaller bands, the lesser known bands. Great characters. When they walked into a room, you knew they were a band instantly, and I think that's kind of been missing since then.
Yes.
Just an abundance of characters, abundance of talent, songwriters, people who wanted nothing else other than to be in a band and go out and play, and there's so much more that bands have to do now. They can't just concentrate on just being in a band. Most of them got jobs and they've got to do their own management, social media, their own label, there's all those other things, and they have to do something else to sustain it, which is a shame. But back then you just lived and breathed it, that was it, for all the bands.
Absolutely. And I think for the fans as well, that just lived it and wanted to be part of it in everyday life, to have albums that made you want to get up in the morning and have a great day. Then records are on, and how much it makes you feel. It's just like absolutely the best feelings in the world.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you put Definitely Maybe on a Friday night before you went out, and you just
Oh,
you knew you were going to have a good night, and it was
yeah.
invincible, you know.
Absolutely. From the beginning of obviously from when you started with the Roses, how many weeks in was it until they came in and started making that music then?
About 6 weeks into the start of my career.
Yes.
Started, the first band was, I was literally just plonked on a chair and kind of asked to observe and make the tea and kind of set up and kind of look after the band. The first band was Sepultura, Brazilian metal band with Andy Wallace, who was producing.
Yeah.
We'd kind of been involved in Nevermind. So immediately I was thrown in with kind of like a legendary producer, engineer. And then a few weeks later, there was a couple of other bands came in, and then it was, you're going to go on and the Stone Roses session. It was like, okay. It was supposed to be, I think they booked 6 weeks. It's like, yeah, it's going to be 6 weeks. And like, that's, you know, like, oh, that's quite a long time, isn't it? You know, six weeks. Oh, yeah, they're going to take their time. And like, little did we know that 14 months later, we'd still be there.
I know. And just like for the album and with the tracks on it, there's some absolute belters on that. I think that drummer in that band, Nick, is... If they did a poll for some of the best drummers in the world, to me, I think he could be the top 5. I think he's that good.
I think he's that good as well. And I was just in awe of him. I was only a young kid. And I'd not seen many bands in the studio at that time, but I'd gone to hundreds and hundreds of gigs.
Yeah.
And then I was just sat in the room. We rehearsed quite a bit actually during that period because there was long periods of time when nothing was really happening. Rennie would just go in on the kit. And I'd ask if I could just sit in there, and I was absolutely blown away. It was just sometimes, it was like there was 2 drummers in the room.
Yeah.
And yeah, just blown away. And I'd been this young kid and hearing him play. And you're right, absolutely amazing. And stuff he was doing, he was rehearsing that he never got a chance to do on the records because it wasn't needed. He's way beyond what you hear on the records as well. And every ounce of that man just is groove and rhythm, and a great singer as well, and a great guitar player as well.
The 4 of them are special people. When they got back together in Manchester, I went to see him.
What an introduction to and a career in music. Just being around, I was like a sponge just in that room, having the luxury of that amount of time, and there was lots of spare time because obviously they were taking so long making the record. But just watching them as individuals, learning off them, probably asking far too many questions and annoying the hell out of them, and Paul Schroeder and Simon Dawson just helping me along the way and answering all my questions and letting me use the studio when they weren't working and things like that. I was kind of fast-tracked as an engineer because I had all this time to use the studio. And Simon would just say, yeah, bring your band in, just use their kit, just bring your band in at the weekend and just practice, record. So my band would come in when they're all at home. But it was just what an experience, and all my band were fans of them as well. But amazing people. Had a great time. Still see Manny now and again as well when he pops down to Monmouth, or we both got twins, and so occasionally sharing photographs of the twins or whatever, and keeping up to date on how they're doing. At the same age as well, the twins. But just a brilliant experience. Talented band.
Absolutely. When I met Manny, I saw him when he was playing in Primal Scream. And it was in Birmingham at the Academy. And after the gigs, we used to go to like Bar Academy, which was next door upstairs. Yeah. And the View were supporting them at the same time. Okay. So we'd been having drinks upstairs, and it was time to go home. I was walking down the stairs. Kyle was literally on the stairs, so I started talking to him. Manny was downstairs having a pint. He was just like, when he sees you, he is going to go absolutely bananas. And it was just like, he was waiting for us. I was totally gobsmacked, Nick. I was absolutely gobsmacked. We had a hug. We had our photo taken. And of course, that was me. That was like, obviously, a mega moment.
Yeah.
You know, amazing. Which is going to take me on to my next subject, right? And I'm going to talk about this.
Yes.
Because, you know what, Nick? I think this album here is pretty something,
It's up there, isn't it?
It is. It is. And when I first heard this, I was in school. My mate had it. He lent it to us, and I've not seen him live, right? But believe me, that album and that band as a whole is just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen live lots of times, and as a three-piece, what a noise they made. The sound that Mark got out of the bass, and with those songs, they only need just as a three-piece, it was brilliant. Then when Charlotte joined, it just added another dimension to it. But yeah, that album, another great time, another brilliant session. I mean, what fun! We were all the same age.
Yeah,
they were just out of school. They had these amazing guitar pop songs. And Owen Morris was just on top form at that time. He was just, crazy anyway, as always, but just seeing him get every last ounce of creativity out of that band and pushing the band, and just the sound he was creating, and the inventiveness of the guitar sounds with Tim. Brilliant to watch. Really, really great album. Brilliant album.
Yeah, I think. Girl from Mars, Nick, I think that track is a real absolute. I will listen to that forever, to the end, that song, because it's just, I will get to see him live at some stage.
Yeah. But they created a sound, didn't they? They no one else really sounded like Ash. They created that sound, and they created, the whole thing. I mean, all their records are great. And again, brilliant people, great fun, brilliant laugh. Yeah, there was some brilliant moments on that record, obviously.
Oh, yeah. Do you know what? I think I've only listened to that once at the end, right? And it would have been once is enough. And it was just like, my mate told me about it. When it came out, he goes, "You need to listen to the end bit." I'm like, really? Yeah, listen to the end. So I'm there, like in my room, and you're listening to it. Seriously, that is just absolute nuts.
Yeah,
that's
it was a crazy session. There was a lot of fun had, a bit of partying going on, loads of work. Again, the album's done.
Sure.
Kind of pretty quick, really, but we had some fun. Yeah, that was done just in the courtyard, outside the Coach House studio, so right outside the studio door. So I literally had to just carry the drum mics out, record it was Mark's idea to do the sick party.
Yeah.
Just, another
it will
great
go
memory.
down in it will go down in history as being absolutely,
Yeah. And that's. With that record, every time I hear it, it kind of just, you hear Rockfield's drum room and the corridor. It's on that record, for whatever reason, every time I put it on, it's just immediately I'm in the room with it. It's just brilliant. It's just great, so well recorded, so well produced, and brilliant songwriting.
Absolutely. I mean, I've been listening to it, and it's just like, I just think that is just pretty something. And I'm really, it's just a really great album. Yeah. And it must have been incredible, like you say, with Owen at the time working on that.
Yeah.
How much would you say that Owen Morris has had an impact on your life, Nick? And how much?
Massively, I mean, Rockfield gave me the opportunity initially. And then through circumstances, I ended up with Owen.
Yes.
And then from working with Owen on a couple of small sessions at Rockfield, then on to the Ash session, that was the kind of start of our working relationship. And then I kind of worked with him for the next few years. Then wherever he went, I went. We worked together, and it was just another person who gave me an opportunity. And at that time, I mean, he was just brilliant, just so creative, so full of ideas, crazy as you like, but that was part and parcel of it. The sessions were mad, the hours were long, we all spent a lot of time in the pub, but just to watch him at work, I mean, he was just so creative and so inventive. And just getting the most out of the bands and kind of making them feel, because when they were nervous or it's like their big breaks or they didn't quite have all the songs together, but he always managed to get what he needed out of the bands and get the records done. Yeah, but massive influence, you know, because I could get into work. I wouldn't have got to work with any of those bands at that time in my career if it wasn't for him. So, and now having had that opportunity from him, it's enabled me to go on and have the career that I've had. So, you know, just massive thanks to him really for giving me that opportunity. And you know, I was kind of a little bit more sensible, kind of keeping things running smooth, and keeping, you know, a bit of control, and then making sure we didn't record over everything. But it was all on top, you know, not the best we could have done with Pro Tools about 10 years earlier, really, because of, crazy trying to keep it all together on tape, and of course lots and lots of tracks. Owen liked to layer up and get that big wall of sound, so lots of bouncing between tracks and lots of kind of technical stuff going on that was a lot more difficult than being on analog.
As a fan, right, the impact that he has had on the music universe, let's say, is massive.
Yeah, massive.
And he deserves just as much credit as anyone, I suppose, because if it wasn't for him, I suppose, taking control of individual people and just have, you know, it in his mind to think like, you know what, if you try it like this, it's going to work.
Yeah.
And let's put it this way, Nick, for Noel to believe in, trust him is a massive deal. Well, all of them to trust him. They must, you know, just unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, because you can take away all the craziness and all that, the other stuff, but at the end of the day, he knew how to make a great record and get the best out of people and deal with those larger than life characters, because he was the largest out of everybody. He was larger than life. So he managed to get those records made when others wouldn't have been able to, you know, and brilliant. You're right. He deserves so much credit for that, for what he did for British music. You know, that side of it. There was other sides of it, maybe the kind of more kind of corporate polished records going on and stuff like that. But for what he brought to the table, it was absolutely, you know, genre defining, really.
Sure. And you know what, Nick, as well, I can think about like all the other bands at that time, and you know, the people like Owen and yourself, and when I was like Paul Tipler, I think the engineers and the producers were really, you know, good, like really just brilliant at their jobs, you know, and help so many people get things right. Because if you don't have them people, I just think like, how are you going to get that sound? Because anyone can think they're great, you know, but when you have someone just to think like, well, you know, if you do this and do that.
Yeah, I mean, studios were really good as well in that period. And I think a lot of the engineers and producers and engineers who become producers, they'd grown up in those big studios with like legendary big producers from the 80s.
Sure.
Who were so talented. And you learn, like, I got to work with a lot of them in the early 90s, and you learned so much off them. But of course, there we were into the era of guitar bands coming back again, and we were still on analog, and it was still an era where bands were bands, and bands would rehearse all day, they'd write all day, you kind of live and breathe it, like we said before. So it was a good mix of all these producers and engineers who'd come through these great studios, having learned from all these great producers who'd made fantastic records in the 80s. And with the mix of guitar bands that was coming in, live music coming back, guitar bands coming back, the kind of whole scene, I think it was just a great mix, and add that into some great studios. You Rockfield being one of them. And yeah, just a fantastic mix of people. You're right, those producers and engineers deserve loads of credit because they created the whole 90s era as well.
Totally. With Rockfield, I think the history of that place with the magic there is pretty something, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, you feel it when you go in the place. It's special, and bands feel it when they go there. It's just got something, it's a big place, and the history when you go back to the stuff from the 60s and obviously Queen and everything in the 70s and what it means to so many people of so many different ages.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
When I work with a young band and they come there and they've contacted me because of records they've done in the past or because of Rockfield, and they turn up there, they are just in awe of the place. And it inspires them, it makes some of them nervous as well because they feel like they've got to live up to, but that you soon get over that, and we're really good at getting them through that side of it. And it just inspires them, and they are buzzing when they go there. It's 20 questions, obviously, it's like, where did they do this? Who did this there? What happened there? It's all the time, but it's great to see, and I never tire of that, seeing the band's face when they drive up in the van and they get out of the van, they're like, we're here, this is it, I don't tire of seeing that, and they're experiencing it for the first time, whereas for me it's thousands, only into thousands of records are done there, and you don't tire of it. I've really noticed the last 5 years again a resurgence in the interest of that period, and obviously all those records are like, we just had the 25th anniversary, a lot of those records are 20 years old, 25 years old, 30 years old, and maybe there's, it's not as great a period at the moment for guitar. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some amazing guitar bands around, but I don't think it's quite grabbing people the way it needs to grab people. So they're, not just people our generation, but the young bands. They're all the young bands again are asking about Oasis, Ash, The Verve, the Stone Roses, the Charlatans. They're all asking about that again. And there was a period when they didn't really. They had one or two, but whether that was because they were trying to forge their own way, and it didn't quite happen. And now they're kind of, especially fans are kind of crying out for that kind of thing again, and it's not there. And it's back with a vengeance, Well, but you don't tire of it, you don't tire of it. Great, it's just a great period in British music and in my life and in your life and in you can't sit, you're not going to get sick of sitting around talking about it.
No way. Which is going to bring me on to, I suppose, the band now, because obviously I made a video on Morning Glory, and when I read about that was going to come out, right, I was just like, oh, this is going to be good. This is going to be good. And then to watch yourself with Noel about the album.
On the documentary was the first proper time back with Noel spending time with him. Since Be Here Now, really.
Yeah. It was great seeing you, like, when you did it together, it was just brilliant, because obviously the weather was nice, and for him to be there, and his reaction, just obviously talking about that time together.
Yeah.
And it's just like, with how amazing it was.
Yeah, because he was taken aback by it all, and he's quite shocked with how it was. He doesn't remember it being like that at all, and like reminded him little bits. And then the football match with Nigel Kennedy, and these little things that, because it was all happening so fast, and he was so focused. He was working, day in, day out, working hard. Him knowing.
Yeah, I can. When
I was doing a lot of trips back and forward to the pub, bringing I was a taxi.
Do you know what? I was even going to ask you about, like, we can talk about them, but I bet Bonehead was amazing to be around.
Amazing. Yeah. I loved being around all of them, Bonehead was brilliant to be around. Never a dull moment.
Yeah.
Great sense of humour. Yeah, proper. And Griggsy would just talk, and he'd love his love of football and cricket as well. We'd just talk for bloody hours on that. And we're a great talker.
And I mean, like, obviously the story where it all kicked off, and they really, like, obviously it must have been pretty fucking scary, Nick.
Yeah, it was full on.
When they
Obviously, we
had
get asked about that a lot.
Yeah.
We kept it quiet for many years at Rockfield until it became until they spoke about it, until it was common knowledge. We'd always get asked about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a big moment in the Oasis story, really.
Yeah. Who drove the car? Who drove the car?
Alan White. There could have been. There could have been. No more Oasis after that point. Yeah,
God, I know.
had it just gone a little bit further, but it's become legend, isn't it? And the whole event.
Yeah.
And was witness to the whole thing.
I know. That is the album that I had when I was 15 years of age. And no matter what sort of day you're going to have, that just makes you feel alive, right? And to see that happen must have been amazing.
Yeah. I mean, defining moment in my life, in a lot of people's lives, to actually have been part of it. It's just incredible, And when we were doing it, it was incredible. Everybody knew it was kind of where it was going. Those songs, the whole vibe around the studio, it was just set up, for them to go to another level after they were already a massive band, definitely maybe, but doing that record and I don't know, the mood in the country and the way the fans were and everything about it. And then he comes in with all these songs, Rockfield being the right studio for them to be in at the time, and everything, was done so quickly, as Noel, we've talked about, doing a song a day, those song a day, 15 songs, 15 days. Thank you very much. Off we go.
Yeah.
And incredible, brilliant fun. And just inspiring watching them. I think of being there for that session has inspired me for my whole career when I'm on other sessions where maybe it's not going so well, and there's days when you think, I don't want to be here today or whatever, and then you think those kind of experiences you've had, that album in particular, is just what makes you still love doing what I'm doing now.
Can you remember when Noel did his guitar pit for Don't Look Back in Anger, and then when Weller did the Champagne Supernova bit, can you still see them things now?
Yeah, there's moments, obviously a long time ago.
Yes,
and a lot of beer drunk. So I certainly remembered a lot more than Noel did.
Well, absolutely.
But but then he was just so kind of focused, and there's moments. I mean, I remember them turning up. I remember Liam when he first walked in the room. I mean, you'd already met them before then anyway, because I met them when we were doing Second Coming. But
sure.
So moments like that. I remember the piano for Don't Look Back in Anger, it was yesterday when he was doing the vocals for Champagne Supernova. There's fleeting moments of the album that are so vivid now. It's just, and when you walk back in the room, you kind of sometimes you kind of just transform back to that moment. I remember quite a lot of it. I can remember all the mic setup, where everything was set up, what amps were used, where people stood, where we did, there's obviously certain things like when we did the guitar for Wonderwall up on the wall, that's just going to stick with you, forever, something like that, because you have to tell that story so many times anyway. But kind of reliving the album through people when they want to know has kept it fresh in my mind.
Absolutely.
And I've made notes throughout my career anyway, because we had to make notes of everything back then, because it was all analog, so you had to recall sessions a lot of the time. So I've still got all the notes from those albums. A lot of the time, that was my job for the day, was going out with Liam.
Wow.
For the day.
Wow.
If Noel was busy in the studio with Owen or whatever, I'd kind of go off with Liam and keep it busy for the day.
Wow, what a job.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just for someone who wants to, obviously get nice clothes and walk out the front door and go down the pub and be like Liam, to go down the pub and actually be with Liam, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I was 19 at those times when we was doing Be Here Now, and being in London when they were at the height of their careers. yeah, just amazing experience. The people we were with, the parties we went to, the places we went, the places we stayed, the studios we were in, everything that was just mind blowing.
Yeah.
Mind blowing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. How much did they used to like spend on the pub? How much would they spend?
What, time or money?
Money.
I didn't really pay much attention to that. It just sort of was going on a tab somewhere. So, yeah, I mean, if we all went, and all of us could have been a massive group when there was the Minders as well, and then the kind of friends, and then other people we'd meet up with. Yeah, a lot could be in the pub all day if we were in the hotel bar where it was expensive. The party always used to be in my room in the hotel,
right. Yeah,
because probably being the lowest ranked of everybody. It was like, well, we'll have the party in Brino's room, because then you can go to bed. The only person who can't go to bed is me until everybody's left, which usually meant until Liam's left, because Liam would be the last one. So I'd get kind of lumbered with the pie. I didn't mind it. I was young and up for a party anyway. So it was always in my room. And I remember checking out after, I think we'd been there a few weeks, and I went to check out. And they said, "Oh, you haven't cleared your bar bill." Usually the management company cleared it, and it hadn't been cleared.
Oh,
and I think we'd had a couple of parties. I think it was about $6,500 grand.
Jesus Christ!
At 19 years of age, I didn't have that kind of money, and I was like, I can't pay it. I don't think I even had a credit card back then in 1996 or whatever it was. Now you can't leave, you can't check out, you're not going to security's coming and all that. And I'm like, well, you know who it is, and they were like, no, we don't, because we're all booked under different names.
Yeah.
And I remember Paul Gallagher was there actually, and I said, I need to get this sorted. I need to call. Have you got the number for the office? And he just laughed.
God.
And then in the end, the office sorted it and they got it paid. But I think it was quite. I think it was about $6,500 grand.
Jesus.
But
the thing is,
I don't know how many parties that was for.
Yeah. That's just one time. You think about the amount of others. I can imagine. Oh God. That's unbelievable. I can imagine it would have been like, hundreds, thousands of pounds spent on like, good times, especially on other things that they were doing. I mean, Jesus Christ, that must have been absolutely insane. With Liam doing pretty well for himself.
He's done amazing, isn't he? And deservedly so. Great records.
Yeah. He's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, he is.
I'm really proud of Liam. As a fan, I think he would have took criticism of someone who he loves, and for him to go, right, do you know what? Well, I'm going to do this, and for so many young people to get on board, to think like he still has this magic where
undoubtedly,
he is a special man.
Yeah.
I think Nick, I can honestly say, I think he's probably the best front man I've seen.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, the youngster's just hanging on his every word. He commands the stage. Everyone in the room is just waiting, waiting to hear him sing. Just the presence he's got, everything he comes out with. He's, the music's great. He's witty. The interviews are good. He just kept on going, and he's amazing.
Yeah, I think he's been the biggest influence on I've swayed more towards his brother because I've seen Noel 10 times with the Birds, and I saw Oasis 9, right, Nick? Right. But the first time I saw Oasis was Familiar to Millions on the Fridays, Standing on the Shoulders. So, but from then, like, onwards.
Well, those vocals have stood the test of time, haven't they?
Yeah.
It's hard to find someone else who's doing complete kind of vocal performances like those are. Really raw, really emotional, really just defining moments.
Yeah.
And he's still doing them. The vocals on all the records, his voice is still there.
Amazing. I think both of their voices are amazing. Be Here Now takes a bit of stick off Noel, and like Liam loves it, but that's a mega album.
It's a brilliant album. Liam always loved that album. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he lived and breathed every moment of that session. Liam did. He used to play it. We had a massive PA set up in the studio, and he used to blast it the album out of it every night when we'd finish work. Whoever was there or whoever he'd invited back, we'd blast it, and he'd sing every word to whoever was in the room.
Yeah.
He absolutely lived and breathed it.
Unreal. Yeah. It really is like, I can remember the day I got it. I was at my nan's in Norwich, funny enough, Nick.
Yeah.
And I got on the bus, went into City, picked it up. The rest is history.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and shifted tons that first week. I can't forget how many it is, like 750,000 or something in a week.
Yeah.
I mean, the anticipation was there, wasn't it? It was there with What's the Story, but for Be Here Now, it was... I suppose the three times in my life when that anticipation's been like that was for the Second Coming, What's the Story, and Be Here Now. Those three where I've seen that level of anticipation for everyone getting up early, going down to Woolworths or wherever it was.
Yeah.
And absolutely. People still remember, say to me, I still remember getting up and going down and getting my copy. People still remember where they bought those albums from, don't they?
Nick, this is my original, right? And obviously it's there. That's the original. Obviously the case is all knackered and everything, right? But on the 21st of August, and I'll tell you what made that special as well, Nick. BBC the night before, right? Where they were playing songs on the BBC. I think it was on like 11 o'clock at night. And it was the launch of that album. And they had Liam and Noel singing By the Swimming Pool, Stand By Me.
Yeah, stuff that doesn't happen now,
No.
Yeah, amazing time to be around music.
Oh, it's just like, and you know what, Nick? I was thinking today of to say this to you as well, right? Now, obviously, there's $1 million question if it will ever happen, but forget that. If you think about if they could play them songs again, I'd want them to play songs of Be Here Now.
Yeah.
Because I think songs on Be Here Now, with the way they are musicians now and the way that they could put that sound out now on tracks off that album, it would be phenomenal.
Oh yeah, there's tracks on that album you just couldn't leave off if you was playing live. If they got back together, you just have to play a couple off that album as well. Yeah, it's a great album.
It is.
Great album. It was a completely different session to What's the Story.
Yes.
What's the Story you've done very, very quickly, and it probably wasn't as organised as it appeared, but it seemed very organised. It was done, the songs were there, finishing the lyrics in his room at Rockfield and what have you, but it was all very quick. Straight onto mixing. All done was Be Here Now, 7 months, kind of various studios, moving studios every couple of weeks. That was more down to the press intrusion than it was anything to do with the studios. We just had to move every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
It was just ridiculous, the hassle that they got.
Yes.
I saw it firsthand. And anyone who ever sits there and says, "Oh, what they complaining for," is when celebrities complain about this or complain about that. When you've witnessed what was going on at that period for that band, for those guys, day in, day out, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Big time.
Handled it amazingly. It just
unbelievable.
I see it firsthand every day and experience it firsthand. I'd get stopped or whatever, and they'd hassling me to give them some information every day. But yeah, especially Liam, it was difficult, and they handled it amazingly.
They really did. And I mean, for someone obviously sucked in as a young age into that environment, and for them people to have an impact on my life, it was just like every day you want to know. And you can hold your hands up and say, it's just like, I'm not ashamed of it because of how much they mean to us. But it's just like, if it's a newspaper, if it's a magazine, if it's TV, in 6 months' time, the single's going to come out. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like, you just want it. You want it all.
In the 28 years I've been going to Rockfield, it's the only band that ever had a steady stream of fans at the gate, waiting to catch a glimpse of them, wanting a bit of information. Other band, the Roses, there would be a couple every now and again for the Roses. Other bands, I'm sure, have had the odd fan there. But it was a large group every day with them.
Yeah.
Back then, it's the only band we've ever had it with.
Yeah.
Because the interest is massive. Like, people want to know every day what's happening, when's this coming out, what they're doing. Especially in that period, the whole "What's the Story Be Here Now" period. So you get why the press, you get why all that's going on, but it was too much.
What I have learned over the years, Nick, about Liam and Noel Gallagher, they were brought up to have love in their life and to be pretty decent people.
Yeah.
And they are.
And they are, yeah. Yeah, they all are. The way they were brought up, where they're from, there's kind of togetherness. Brooksy took me around all their local haunts when they were kids and where he grew up, and just amazing people.
To me, you can say it 100 million times. To me, they're the best people in the world, and they make me want to talk to people about music. Do you know what, Nick? I mean, surely over the next 15 years or so, if they're not going to get back together, which is, it's a conversation I probably have every day with mates and people, whatever.
Yeah, everybody asks me all the time.
Yeah.
When you're in the studio, when they're going to get back together, I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you this, what I honestly think from what my opinion is. I always said if it was going to happen, it would be when Noel hits 60, and all depends what happens with their mum, right? Because when Peggy goes, surely for them three boys, it's going to be a pretty heavy thing for their lives, because of it's for them, but also, the fans are really going to be like, this is a pretty serious thing, and we'll see what happens from them, because they're not going to turn around and not say their goodbyes. They have to do that. And I don't know what happened from now until then. I don't know. It's a question that you talk about every day. Will it? Won't it? There's sometimes I think yes. There's sometimes I think I don't want
it. Sometimes you think never.
Yeah.
I mean, I meet people who some say, it's going to happen. Others who say, no, it'll never happen. And who knows? Who knows?
I know. But in one way, Nick, we both know if it was to happen,
how brilliant it would be.
Oh, Jesus Christ, it would be. Well, it would just be the biggest thing. It would
be massive. Yeah.
Massive. Actually, the biggest thing. It would be the biggest thing, the biggest music thing in the world.
Yeah.
Or
it's happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
For a very long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be. It would.
And I don't think it would be making music. It would be just playing live. But
there'd be a lot of emotional people in that crowd, wouldn't there?
Jesus Christ. I just hope I'm still alive when it happens, man. If it was to happen.
Yeah.
But I
can't believe it's the 25th anniversary of Be Here Now next year, already. It's when
are they gonna
where's that time gone?
When you obviously done the Morning Glory bit, did you talk about that?
Yeah, we talked about Be Here Now. Some of the stuff on that, on that record. Just again refreshing Noel's memory about a few of the stories on that.
Sure.
Yeah, he said, "I'm gonna have to get you in for the Be Here Now one," because he said, I can remember even less of that one.
Yeah, I was going to ask you something about the Be Here Now, because. Also, I've heard you say, Nick, when you met George Martin.
Yeah.
And I mean that's got to be a massive thing for yourself.
Yeah, massive Beatles fan. To meet him in Abbey Road, the bizarre. Because you probably heard the story of it was with
Jim
Jim
Carrey.
Carrey. You know,
I mean, that's just insane as well.
That was mind blowing anyway, because at that time Jim Carrey was massive. You know, he's a massive film star anyway.
Yeah,
but all the films were coming out of that period. So to kind of be introduced to Jim Carrey by George Martin in Studio 2 at Abbey Road was insane. And me and Jim Carrey, like little kids, as George Martin's just explaining how he set up the drums and where John was sat and what guitars used and what mics. And me and Jim Carrey just kind of nudging each other, going, can you believe this is happening? And if he couldn't believe this is happening, I certainly couldn't believe this is happening.
I mean, that's just unreal, isn't it? I mean, to do the job that you do, and then to have him, you know, speak to you about obviously them and being in that place. What's it like being in that place?
It was a great studio. Just being a music fan, it means a lot to all music fans, you know, not just fans of the Beatles, but specifically fans of the Beatles. And I was. So when Owen said that's where we were going to start the album, was at Abbey Road, I was like, well, that's one to tick off, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, moments I was just looking for an excuse to go and work there, but it was still very early on in my career. I didn't know whether it would happen. And when they went there, fantastic studio. And obviously they were buzzing, you know, we're always playing Beatles records through the loudspeakers into the live room. So you stand in that live room and the hairs on the back of your neck are standing up. I'm sure everybody who works there, it's like just one of those things that happens all the time and you kind of get used to it. It's like people walking in and talking about Bohemian Rhapsody at Rockfield. It just happens every time. And to us, it's just normal to be in that room working, but to other people walking in, it's kind of, I suppose it's the closest I come to when people walk into Rockfield and what they feel about going, you know, sitting at Freddie's piano or at the Don't Look Back in Anger piano, or having their photo taken in front of the Wonderwall. It was me being in Abbey Road blasting the Beatles out in that room is what people feel when they go to Rockfield.
Sure. What were the actual tracks that were recorded in Abbey Road, made the cut for that?
I'd have to consult my notes for that.
Right.
About 6 backing tracks I think were done there. Obviously, we finished them at the studio as it went on for 7 months, and more overdubs. We didn't finish any songs there, but half a dozen of the backing tracks were done there. And it was we were only there for 2 weeks. Supposed to be there longer, but only 2 weeks. So it was only 2 weeks out of the 7 months was actually done at Abbey Road. But quite a few of the backing tracks, we had the issues, and I talked about it that we were so loud that the arrangers were coming in from Studio 1 complaining about the noise on their cellos. It was going through the floor. And so it was time to leave. We decided it was not the right studio for them if they were getting told to turn it down.
Oh God. And something else, Nick, I wanted to ask you is going back to Morning Glory for a second. All the B-sides, were they recorded at Rockfield for Morning Glory?
Not all of them, but we did 15 songs there altogether.
Right.
So it would have been three the B-sides were done there, and then others were done afterwards. Not all of them done there.
Right.
Noel came back once to do another song with Owen. But only a couple of them were done there.
Was Master Plan recorded there?
No.
Right.
No, they did Master Plan elsewhere.
Right. I can't remember if it was like Better People or something that he said was recorded in Rockfield.
Yes, Better People, yeah. That was one of them. There might have been one song that didn't even make a B-side or the album. I can't remember what the other song was, but there's 2. I think 2 of them ended up being B-sides. But we did 15.
Yeah, I know he said Step Out, and I can't remember. You know, when you're seriously overloaded and you're taking in all this information and you know it, but obviously when you try and think of it at the time, just like, I'm sure it was that one. You know. But hey, to have that guitar that he gave to you, I mean, that's got to be amazing, Nick, hasn't it? Really?
Yeah, lucky to have got that. He gave me that in Abbey Road. Another story from the book, really, where my guitar ended up in 1,000 pieces on the floor. And,
crazy.
In return, I ended up with the guitar that obviously probably best known for Wonderwall, really, written and recorded, but also wrote most of that album on it and recorded a lot of that album with that guitar. As you said, the documentary, he was sat up in his room at Rockfield with that guitar, finishing off all the lyrics, writing all the songs. It was the one he brought down the train when he, I think he finished writing Wonderwall on the train and maybe Cast No Shadow on the way to the studio with that guitar. So he said to me, he wrote most of the album with that guitar, and it was. Liam was saying he was going to buy me any guitar that I wanted. He'd take me down Denmark Street, and I could have. So I'm thinking, I get a nice Gibson or something, and then Noel says, "Come with me," and takes me down into the studio in Abbey Road, and says, "You remember this guitar, don't you? This is the one from What's a Story?" And I was like, "Sorry, Liam, I'm going to have this one."
Yeah, I mean, that is just like I know, like. People will obviously say, do you want this? Do you want that? And I mean, the value of it. I mean, I was thinking, could it, like John Lennon's piano with Imagine, that's in the same category.
Well, I think to a lot of people it is.
Yeah.
An iconic piece of British music memorabilia, really.
Absolutely.
Like Noel's Union Jack guitar. You associate like Lennon's white piano and it's Freddie's white piano. If you hold Oasis in the same esteem as those artists, then that's those kind of things are up there. And they define that band. They define these musicians. It's a great collector's piece. So still in my possession.
Yeah,
managed to keep hold of it all this time.
Yeah, and it's just like what, keep it. I just think keep it forever, unless you fancy living the dream and you're sort of like winning the lottery or something. Because I can only guess, and and in all fairness, Nick, I wouldn't want you to tell me the price because I would just want to guess, could it be £1 million? I don't know, but it's got to be.
It just needs two people who really want it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of high profile people with a lot of money, footballers, things like that, massive fans of Oasis. Who knows? Yeah, there's lots of interest from collectors. There's lots of interest from auction houses. But maybe one day. But maybe what I'll do is I'll raffle it instead of putting it in an auction, so that not just people with money and collectors can actually have a chance of owning that guitar, so that every single Oasis fan can have an opportunity to own that guitar. Put it out there, a couple of quid a ticket, and then everyone gets an opportunity to own that guitar, whether you're, buying one ticket or whether you can afford to buy 1,000 tickets, whatever it is. At least every single Oasis fan would be in with a shout of owning that guitar.
Sure. And you know what, Nick? I think that guitar, and for the band that they are, and for the man that gave it to you, that guitar is to the fans. It's not to some guy to live in America somewhere and have it, stored away. That guitar is for the people.
That's what I'd like to think. And maybe, if it did, maybe the raffle would be the way to go. Give every Oasis fan an opportunity.
Yes.
To own that guitar for a couple of quid.
Yeah.
And it'd probably still make a lot of money on the raffle, but at least it would be in keeping with the way the band are and with the way Noel is, giving every Oasis fan an opportunity to own that guitar.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was listening to the Oasis podcast, you talked about a book. Are you going to bring out a book?
Yeah, the book's nearly finished.
Right.
It's been a few years coming. As I say, I've had notes for it for a while, but then it was only when I got to to 40, and was telling my daughter, who's 10 now, telling her a couple of little things, and she said, "Dad, now that you're really old, you better start writing this down because you're going to forget it." And then that kind of spurred me on to, maybe I should write it down. It was never about, bringing out a book on the period of time. It was more about just writing down all these amazing events and things that I've been involved in. Crazy stuff that when I'm writing, I can't believe it actually happened. Some of the stuff, whether it's those moments in time with bands like Oasis. And then going on later on, when you get to work with bands like The Darkness, who are actually, amazing band on top of their game, and I got to work with them, one of the biggest rock bands in the world at the time. So the stuff that went on there, just but it's all, it's writing it down. So so my kids that's how it started, really, was to make sure these stories are out there, because you never know when something's going to happen or whatever. So it's like, leave it for my kids so they can look back and go, okay. It's going to be hard being a parent when they're teenagers, though, when you try and tell them.
Well, absolutely.
You're trying to tell them off, and they just holding the book up, going, "Dad."
Yeah. I mean, like, how much you've seen of stuff. I mean,
28 years of it. Through the last true decadent period of the industry, really, the 90s. When there were still helicopters and limos going, but there's still stories from like right up to the present day. There's still, the characters are still in the industry. They get a bit more thin on the ground. That period is what gives you the most stories, just from the nature of the people involved in them and how big those bands were. But it goes right through people like The Darkness and the Arctic Monkeys, the Seasick Steve, and I said Bruce Springsteen, kind of later stuff as well.
It's so important to the music world that this book comes out. How many people have had this opportunity of your life, Nick, to have these stories? That you're going to put I would expect the attention to detail of what you're going to say in this book. Because as a fan, I want to know.
There's moments in the book where you're kind of explaining how certain things were done, or maybe explaining certain stories that maybe have come out, that maybe kind of a little bit of the truth behind some of those kind of things. There's a technical aspect to it as well. Then there's tons of just absolutely hilarious stories, fly on the wall moments, which will get to people. And then there's some real crazy shit in there. The Bruce Springsteen part of the book is just a whole novel in itself, really. There's a whole thing leading up to that whole, how it happened, how it came around, as whole episode. And but the excitement, it nearly didn't happen. I had to make it happen, and there was no way I was not gonna make it happen. I was like, this is happening. So and went, and it was in the Hit Factory as well, so like a legendary studios, 54th Street. So we started off in the old Hit Factory, which I absolutely loved, because it reminded me a bit more of Rockfield, a bit more rustic, a bit more kind of 70s vibe to it. Studio hadn't really changed much. Nice old Neve desk in there. We nervous. I'm not never really nervous when I work with people. I remember I was probably only about 26 at the time, so still fairly young. And it's Bruce, and it's in the Hit Factory, a studio I'd never worked in. It's in America. The whole thing that had happened beforehand was kind of fried my brain. And then Bruce is going to turn up, and you get to the studio and his tech's there, and he's setting up all his Fender Twins, and you're like, that's Bruce's amps, and then the blonde telly's there as well, and all his other guitars are there, and just a buzz on the band. Like, the band was so excited to have him there as well. So the whole buzz about the place was amazing, and the record label. And you get all the pressure from the label and the Mac. You've got to make sure you're on film. Don't mess up. Don't do. And and then he comes, and we were tracking, so we were doing guitars, and he did backing vocals as well, and doing some vocals. And we did a load of guitars, and then he just kind of went, right, I'm going to go off, get some coffee, so I'll just leave you, just decide whatever you want to do. He said, I'm sure it'll be fine. I'll come back and have a listen later. Came back. And great great few days. And then he'd take us out for dinner in the night, and it was just stories. And immediately, actually, because he'd seen on the tapes that we'd come from Rockfield, the labels on the tapes, and so he'd asked me about it. And as soon as we went out for dinner, he was like, right, so Rockfield. And he wanted to know about Rockfield. He's a massive Dave Edmunds fan.
Right.
And she was like, do you ever know Dave? And Dave still lives in Monmouth and good friends with Dave. And at the time, Dave was playing on my wife's record at the time. So we were actually working with Dave. And I was like, yeah, I'm doing a record with Dave's playing and my wife's record. And he was like, oh, tell me about Edmunds, what's he like? And I love that man. I love his playing. I love Rockfield and the history of that place. And he wanted to know all about it. So it kind of struck up that conversation. And so immediately that was kind of like, we were away then. There's like all the nerves go. You're talking about, you're in your element, talking about he's wanting to know about it. But brilliant, what a lovely man. And I remember he had all his amps there. He's got all his amps there, and in the end he's I know what this track needs, and he just gets his pod out and he just goes to preset 1, which is called Springsteen, and then he just starts playing with his pod, and it's just the Springsteen sound straight away. Brilliant few days, brilliant, lovely man, just amazing experience. And then we were mixing then in the newer Hit Factory, just on the same street, down the other end of the street, opposite the old Studio 54 is the new building.
No way.
Yeah. And I remember going down there, and I get into there was a load of people in the foyer, and I get in reception, I'm signing, I was like, oh, there's what's going on here then? He's like, oh, well, Michael Jackson's in Studio 1, so you can't get near Studio 1. And I said, oh, right, okay. So I'm with Bruce, I'm in Studio 2. So I get in the lift, going up to Studio 2, and then this entourage comes in the lift. It's a huge lift. I think it's made of gold, as far as I can remember. and in gets a massive entourage of people, and a very tall man in the middle, which is Puff Daddy. And so he gets in and he says, how you doing? Introduces himself. He's like, it's crazy out there because of Michael, hey? And I'm like, yeah, it's crazy. And then I get off at number 2, and he's like, oh, you're in with Mr. Springsteen. And everyone referred to him as Mr. Springsteen.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah. He's like, oh, cool, man. Have a great time. I think he was in Studio 3, and I think maybe Elton John was on the studio on the top floor in 4. So I'm kind of there at these controls, thinking the talent in this building at the moment,
mega.
Yeah, and it continued to be a crazy time. Which you'll read all about. I'm sure at some point.
Oh, so with that book, Nick, do you think it will come out this year?
That's the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
I
pretty
really
much there
hope
with
so.
it.
Christmas?
In time for everyone's Christmas stocking.
Brilliant.
Yeah, there was going to be a Rockfield tour as well, which we've already done like an audience with, me and Kingsley from Rockfield and his daughter Lisa, who manages the studio.
Sure.
And we did one in Monmouth Town Hall. The demand was brilliant. We had the rock band Thunder asking all the questions and comparing the evening, and they were brilliant because they know us all so well. They know when to prod and to get the stories out of us and stuff. Maybe we should, they were kind of great. And after the documentary came out, the interest was there to take that on a tour and kind of talk about. I mean, Kingsley's stories going back to the 60s and the 70s and how he got into the business are phenomenal.
Amazing.
Maybe if we're allowed to do that, the book will come out, and then the tour will be after that, kind of beginning of next year.
Yeah. Will you come up north? Will you come up north?
Yeah, I mean, we'd love to do as many dates as we can. We'll start off fairly local, doing Cardiff and maybe Bristol, and then another one in Monmouth at the little theatre in Monmouth there, where Alan McGee's done he did his one there as well. He's a great little theatre there in Monmouth, and then take it around the country. Why not? I mean, I think the idea would be to get someone from kind of each city that we did, someone associated from a band who was associated with Rockfield. So if we went to Glasgow, we'd maybe try and get the Teenage Fan Club guys in.
Yes.
If we were in Scotland, maybe the Proclaimers would come along, people who are associated with Rockfield, and get them to come along and be part of the evening and ask the questions. Because you could think immediately of some brilliant people who would be amazing. And what a night it would be to have once Kingsley starts, he's he's phenomenal. You can't stop him. And then to have people like that, I don't know, we'd approach who we could approach. This list is endless, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, you never know who's going to be asking the questions, and what a great night it'll be.
Absolutely. And also, Nick, I was going to talk about obviously Norfolk and that, because my grandparents used to live in Norwich, and that's why I'm a Norwich fan as well. And
are you? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to go to the games. Yeah, we used to go and watch Norwich play. Yeah. And I had a new studio in Norfolk with Dan Hawkins from The Darkness, and a friend of ours, Dave Jacob, who insured the studio and all that. They sponsor Norwich City, so they have a box at the football in Norwich.
No way.
So yeah, they were. We did lots of stuff with them, some charity things, and they were all involved in the studio. So they used to take us along then to the football.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah. There'd be the Darkness boys were really into their football, good footballers as well.
Yeah, are they Norwich fans?
Yeah, they're.
Because they're from Lowestoft, aren't they?
They're from Lowestoft, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So they'd go along. Rick Wakeman used to be there as well. And then there'd always be an ex-player there as well. But a great group of people that we had that used to go as often as we could, really.
Sure. Wow, that's pretty cool. I'm really proud of supporting that football club. Especially
what a great club! What a great club, eh? The fans, the setup there, the kind of feel of the club. Brilliant club.
I love that city, and I love the county, and it's just so good.
I do. We met some amazing people there. It was a great studio. We had a great period of our lives, you know. Brilliant part of the world. Lovely people. It was a fantastic studio. Kind of took all the knowledge from all the studios I'd worked in the UK and in Rockfield and in America, and kind of we put it all into that place. And when people would come, they would go, "Oh, this has got this is a bit of Rockfield, a bit of the manor, a bit of Ridge Farm, a bit of the village," and it's kind of kind of all the things that. And Dan Hawkins had worked in lots of studios, obviously as well, and all the stuff that he liked. And literally, it was just the two of us designed. And kind of built the studio. His dad did all the building work, and it was a very kind of family built business, and we created an amazing place.
Nice.
Yeah, and very very soon people like Seasick was turning up. Actually, he came to live with us for 6. We kind of took him in.
No way.
Yeah, he didn't have an address, so he didn't have anywhere to go. And his manager is an old friend of Dan's and someone that I knew from Wales. And he called up and said, like, he'd like to come and do some recording. And he ended up being there months and months and months. And his old American cars turned up, all his stuff turned up. But what a character he was. And then he did Jules Holland. And
absolutely kind of amazing.
Exploded overnight. And and then he got his major record deal at the age of 67. He signed his deal at while he was at Leader's Farm there.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to... That was on my list to talk to you about Seasick, because, like you say, Nick, when he was on Jules and it went like mega crazy, I went to see him at Birmingham Academy, and the place was packed, and it was just like you were stood like this, and it was just like everyone's talking about, well, I liked him from this time and I've liked him from there, but it was just like, Ho Below and his tunes, and he's just an amazing man with incredible song. He is talented, and even his drummer, that is Dan. Is his
Dan? Dan. Yeah, amazing drummer, amazing human being as well.
Yeah.
They were super talented. He's got these songs. He's got that sound. And we recorded the whole thing live. A very crazy way of working. He'd get up, he'd have his porridge, we'd go in, and he'd be rehearsing with Dan, and like, I don't know, Dan might have set up in the cupboard for whatever reason, and so Steve would just drag his amp in, and then all of a sudden he'd just shout to me, "Right, we're ready to go in 5 minutes," and they'd just stay in the cupboard. So
unbelievable.
So I'd have to pull some mics into the cupboard, and then it was all on tape because we didn't use any computers. The last album I actually did completely on tape was that album, actually, where no computers involved at all. Some of the songs were more conventional where he was in the room, but he would just be messing around, and he'd literally say, "Right, I'm ready to go," and that was it. And then he'd do the take, and that would be it. And so that the amp would be spilling down the drum mics. He'd be singing, standing next to the drums, and there'd be cymbals going down it. So it was, from an engineering point of view, quite technically difficult, and doing it all to tapes and no editing. But yeah, he loved being there. I think he loved being in the countryside, and he loved Norfolk. He actually ended up moving to Suffolk.
Right.
We built him a little studio down there. Yeah, he's with us for months. Just him and his wife. His son used to come along as well. Great times. And then, yeah, through him, we got to work with, Nick Cave came there, and
wow.
Ruby Turner sang on the records, Katie Tunstall. So yeah, it was kind of elevated the studio straight away. We had some big names coming through the doors. It's a good album, that, isn't it? It's just,
yeah,
his voice is playing, is the sound he gets out of those interesting guitars that he's got.
I listened to it this morning, Nick, right? And even like track 3, St. Louis Slim.
St. Louis Slim, yeah.
Yeah, do you know what? That's an amazing tune. And in fact, I think I even brought that the day it came out. I think I even would have finished work and I would have brought it from somewhere like Asda or something.
Yeah.
Right? But then it's just like, I've got other albums of his, like the red one, the one with the dog on the front.
Dog Eyes Music, yeah.
Yeah, his lyrics and some of his songs really mean a lot to me. Yeah,
the man's been through a lot. He's a great storyteller. He's got some great experiences in his life going back. Yeah. Sitting with him and talking, 1 minute he's talking about one of the jobs he's had, or whether he was just riding the trains or whatever, to the next thing working with the Beach Boys or something, and then his journey to Europe and working with all the blues bands in Europe and having his own studio. Yeah, he's done so much in his life, the stories, and that comes across in his lyrics and the way he tells. Yeah. He's telling a story in every song, isn't he? And,
absolutely.
A lot of people can relate to it.
I hope he keeps going to the end.
Yeah, and the whole thing, his whole look, his storytelling, the songs, the artwork, everything just comes together. It's a great package,
Oh yeah, he is. He's a real special man.
Yeah,
he really is. Yeah, and I can honestly say I love him, Nick. He's just got it.
Yeah, he's a larger than life character, and we need more of him.
Yeah, we do. So when we say we need more of him, it's going to be really interesting over the next couple of years, I suppose, on what's going to happen. Where's it going?
Well, hopefully everyone's got lots to write about, been busy beavering away in their bedrooms creating the next generation of amazing albums,
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly the stuff I'm getting sent, just did the second Brits and Pieces album, and every band on there is brilliant. Every track's great, so there's lots of great music out there. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with, the live scene just being decimated and people suffering over the last year and a half, where that's going to leave music and bands over the next couple of years. I'm sure it's going to come back with vengeance, really.
Absolutely, I do. What do you think about, obviously, the way people are listening to music these days?
I've got 3 young kids, and they listen to a lot of music. A lot. As soon as we get in the car, they want to put music on. They want your phone. They want to play. They're in their rooms listening to music, or whether it's on TikTok or wherever it is, or YouTube. There's music associated with it. So there's a lot of music being listened to, but it's throwaway. They don't stick with one thing, or they get 30 seconds of one song, they're on to the next song. It is what it is. We'd all love to go back to the days when we all had to buy the CD or the vinyl, and those options are still there for people like ourselves. It's tough for artists, really hard for artists to make money. It's a really difficult industry, and the way it's set up really doesn't support the artists. When you've got these platforms that are earning vast amount of money, and then bands that we're working with who are throwing every last penny that they own into making a record and then getting nothing back, getting millions of streams and getting nothing from it, because these platforms see the product as their platform. They don't see the product as their music on their platform.
Sure.
And the platforms are there to give artists a great way to get their exposure for their music and to get their music out there and for people to find new music, and those opportunities weren't there. So on that front, it's great, but it's not great if you can't have an industry that can sustain itself, that doesn't make money, that doesn't value the product.
No.
Music's just become undervalued. It's something that should be given away for free, and then you find other ways to make money from it, which is all right for a few, but for the vast majority, there's no money to be made from it, and therefore you can spend less time with it, less of your energy on it, because you can't get that back. And for me, then the product isn't as good.
No. Through the 60s through to today, and the golden period, we say the 90s, so the musicians, I think, you know, Stone Roses, Ocean Colour Scene, Cast, Ash, Blur, the list goes on. Just in playing your instrument is just as important, and rehearsing and getting better at your sound.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you're lucky, you're going to write some good lyrics down and that. But I think playing is just as important.
Yeah, and the camaraderie, you know, and being in a studio for 6 to 8 weeks, and you're kind of bonding, you're getting that vibe, and the energy in the room. All those things made a difference. The bands do recreate it, and the bands that do it do say it makes a difference, rather than making it at home separately and all adding your bits. The ones that actually do invest and come to Rockfield, you know, the young unsigned bands, they absolutely take away an amazing experience from the whole thing. And what you're trying to do when you're producing it is capture what they're buzzing when they're in that room. You've got to try and capture them, get them, hit them on the right moment, get the performances out of them. And I think it makes a difference, and I think you can hear it. And I think that's why those records stand the test of time, you know, better, because you can hear the energy from that band and the identity, you know.
Yeah. And I mean, the other thing about Rockfield, Nick, as well, I mean, if it was just down to Queen or people in the 60s with making the tracks that they'd done at that time, it would still be just as famous as it is now. But the fact that it went on to create, you know, more and more and more with big stars.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and even now, you know, your likes of the Pixies and Pound and Nutini and Royal Blood, and loads of indie bands, loads of great indie bands, all going through there again. It just keeps going.
Did the Arctic Monkeys make any music there?
No, the Arctic Monkeys, they came to Leaders Farm.
Right.
We did all the rehearsals and pre-production for Humbug Leaders Farm before they went off with Josh on to do that record.
Right. Coldplay?
Yes, Coldplay did Parachutes.
Wow. I mean, that's pretty unbelievable.
Yeah.
You know, that's just another one. They're a band I've not seen live, but I think they're on my list now to see.
Yeah. Yeah, great band. Yeah, the list just goes on and on. And it's still, all the best bands are still going there. All bands want to go there, the best producers, the best engineers. There's not many studios left, not residential studios. All the big ones are gone now. Yeah. If you've got 5, 6, 7 people plus engineers, producers, and you need to feed all them people, and they all want their own room, because a lot of the kind of established bands, bigger artists, are not doing room sharing. If you're there for quite a long period of time, you need your own space. You need to get good night's sleep. So there's nowhere left with that amount of space. They got 16 apartments there, 2 studios, loads of space, 2 dining rooms, 2 lounges. And then you've got things like the echo chambers that you've got there, and the vintage equipment, which is really well looked after. There isn't really anywhere that you can go and take that many people anymore.
No. I mean
there's less people that actually make records that way now, but
sure,
for the ones that do, when you look at, okay, a lot of the sort of pop artists might just go into a studio in London for the day, and they might just do a couple of days here, a couple might go home at night. But for artists who like to get away and be immersed in the whole experience and away for everything for 2, 3, 4 weeks, you're very limited in the UK now where you can go and do that. Unfortunately, Rockfield is one of the best, if not the best.
Yeah.
And it's still there and will continue to still be there.
It'll be there. Surely that place is going to be there forever.
Yes.
You know, there's no way that's going anywhere. No,
it wouldn't be allowed to. It wouldn't be allowed to. It's, you know, part of Welsh history, art and culture, part of British music, art and culture.
Yeah.
I mean, the history just goes on and on with that place.
Yeah. And Nick, with you now, you're freelance, is that right?
Yeah, I actually went freelance to do Be Here Now when I was 19.
Yeah.
Because I was employed by Rockfield, but I knew that was going to be a long time, 6 months, 7 months. So I became freelance at that point, but still remained as in-house guy for Rockfield.
Yes.
And still am now. Whereas, you know, bands will come, sometimes they'll ask for me, sometimes Rockfield will put the work my way, but 90% of the work is work that comes to me, I take into Rockfield now.
Sure.
But I'm, still part of the family, part of the furniture there, or, you know, have been going there for longer than most, know the place better than most. And there's other guys who pretty much work out of there kind of exclusively, the in-house guys they've got there, the engineers, they're fantastic as well. Top quality, know the place inside out, know what they're doing. But yeah, been freelancing obviously when I went to Norfolk, then Leaders Farm, did a lot less at Rockfield, but even then we were so busy in Leaders Farm I couldn't get in my own studio, so I was still travelling back to Wales to go to Rockfield. Obviously.
Yeah, that's a lot. I was thinking about that. That's a long journey. Like, well, believe me, I know that journey.
Yeah. The road used to be terrible. The main road, the new road wasn't there then. So yeah, but we became so busy. We put a second studio into Leaders Farm because we were fully booked in the big room. So we had all these local bands obviously wanting to come there because they wanted to maybe meet the Darkness, or because Seasick Steve had just gone there, or because I was there, or because the Arctic Monkeys had been there. And we were like, well, you can't get in because it's fully booked. We had Ed Sheeran at the gate trying to get in the studio when he was a young kid.
No way.
He was a fan of the Darkness, and he used to come to the gate and say, if you've got any spare time, he used to come with his guitar, and we showed him around the place. And I was always like, if we get some downtime, then you come in and do some demos and we'll give you an engineer and you can come in. We kept on telling him we're going to build a second studio. And we did in the end to make it affordable for the local bands, because I'm a big believer in grassroots music and helping out local music. I've got a studio in Wales, which is a budget studio. It's actually really well specced out, top class studio, but we keep the rates really low so that the local bands can afford to make records, and all the indie bands come, all the bands from Merthyr and from Newport, and where they've got some great scenes going on at the moment as well. Lots of great bands in Merthyr, but it's affordable for them. And we did that at Leaders Farm, built a second studio, kept the rates really low. It gave our assistants opportunities to engineer and learn the ropes and bring these bands in and kind of learn how to become producers and engineers, just like I got the opportunity to. So yeah, we had that studio, and then that studio became fully booked as well most of the time. So I was down in still working out of Rockfield, even though I had the two studios up in Norfolk.
Yeah. I'll tell you something, Nick, with Norfolk, I know we've talked about the Darkness, but I've always just wanted to see a band come out of Norwich, right?
Yeah.
Just one band that's been a successful band come out of that city, because
it's a great scene there, isn't there? There's lots of good music venues, the university as well, and the people are passionate about the football and their music. And tons of great bands came through Leaders Farm.
I can imagine.
We got to see it firsthand, band after band after band, whether it be really good rock bands as well. Obviously, after the Darkness did their thing, rock bands exploded in that part of the world, and some great ones came out of that. But indie bands as well, and creative people, and then people like Ed was on the scene.
Sure.
We were actually judges. Me and I think Dan might have been judge on that with Dan Hawkins, but we were judging the big competition over that way, which was the next big thing, which Ed Sheeran won.
Sure.
And came out of that as well.
Yeah.
And you got to see so many great bands come through that studio. One band that could just really explode from that part of the world.
Yeah, because like Nick, when my grandparents lived there, my nan lives in Bromsgrove now, just next to my mum and dad, really, because she's like, in her 90s and that. But when it was like the school holidays, we would go over like for 2 weeks, and my grandfather would take us, obviously when the football was on, he would take us down to Carrow Road, and that was amazing. But we'd go for like 2 weeks holiday, obviously go to the coast there, like Sheringham, Cromer, and all of that.
Yeah.
With going there as like a teenager and obviously in my 20s and like being into it, you would see that city and you'd see the culture of people.
Yeah.
And you would just be like, this city, with the way that people are, could have a real buzz about it. If there was like a band that people could get onto in that city, it would have been absolutely massive. Yeah. Absolutely. For a band to go to Carrow Road and put on 2 nights there.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, would have been brilliant. Yeah. Yeah, still time.
Yes.
Yeah, but we loved our time over there. Yeah, we'd love to go back. One of the few places I would move back.
Yeah.
Back there for. Yeah, we'd love that part of the world. Loved having a studio there. We were in between Attleborough and Wyndham.
Oh, right. Well, I used to live in Wyndham.
Oh, did you? Well, we were Spooner Row. That's where the studio was. Just between Wyndham and Attleborough. The studio was in Spooner Row.
Right.
Yeah, great little village, great bunch of people. We had the Boars, the Three Boars pub there in the middle of the village. Great.
Nice.
Saw some pretty crazy nights. This quiet, sleepy little village, and then turning up with the Arctic Monkeys or the Darkness. But great pub, great food, great atmosphere. Yeah, that's where we were, just between. So 5 minutes Wyndham was where we'd go out into Wyndham as well.
Well, I was born in Lincoln, Nick, and then we moved to Wyndham, and then we moved down to Winstable in Kent, and then we moved to Bromsgrove, and now I'm here. So yeah. What do you think of the Arctic Monkeys?
You know what? I like them as a band. I just wouldn't say I'd listened to the albums a huge amount, but I did like them as a band. I had seen them live at that point, and then when they came to the studio, obviously, that point they were massive. So to get them to come in, everyone was excited. All the assistants were excited. We're all, looking forward to them coming. And I think they'd had a few months off, so they hadn't played for a while. They were kind of, we're a little bit rusty. So I said, all right, well, I'll set you up in a circle, and we'll put some mics up, and rather than try and separate everything off, just play without headphones if you want then, and just set them up in a circle, a few mics, got the sound up. And you know what? When they started playing, they immediately impressed me, and I kind of got it straight away. As soon as they played, they had their sound, their whole vibe, the feel. It was the Arctic Monkeys sound straight away, and the drummer was phenomenal.
Oh,
and I was just like, right, this band, they really impressed me on that session. And then when he was kind of producing those demos, I was just recording it and engineering it, and Alex was producing it. He's such a talented guy. Just the ideas, the buzzing, and the excitement, and the kind of how keen he was, and how on it he was, and how the whole band were. But I was like, this kid's knows exactly what he's doing.
I think Alex is real talent, Nick.
Super talented. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, you're not blown away that many times by bands. At first listen, when they come in, that was just instant. It was like, right, okay, I get it now.
Yeah, first time I saw them was Reading 2006. Mm-hmm. And pretty much when everybody went to that festival just to see them.
Yeah.
And I was with my cousin and with my mates and that, and everyone was like, to see them. Yeah. And I think from when that first album came out, Nick, and the tunes, but so on with what they've done, I think Alex Turner and that 4-piece band are absolutely top draw.
Brilliant band.
They're mega. Yeah. I think they should do more. I think they should give the fans more. I think they're at a stage where they've got to play Wembley. I think that's what they've got to do. Yeah. They need to give the fans like hear, you know, something.
Yeah.
But,
They really impressed me. I thought it was a great, you know, a couple of weeks, but brilliant time with them guys.
Yeah, amazing. But thanks ever so much, Nick, for everything.
You're welcome.